How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Staying Focused for Jesus. I did this video a while back, and I just felt led by the Spirit to do a more updated video on it. You know, when you learn new things, then it's always good to take a refresher course on some of the things that you have learned of old or whatnot. And so that's what I want to do in this video. And I want to show you the correlation. Well, the main video I did before was on the Revelation 9 locust. And I showed you those locusts are real throughout history. And so I want to do the same thing in this video. And I want to make some more connections in regards to who we call Nimrod, Gilgamesh, and Sargon of Akkad. Now, lately, you have been hearing me say that I believe that the Antichrist, the man of sin, who is going to be possessed with the spirit of Satan himself, I believe that he's going to be a man of color, who we call a black man. From a biblical perspective, I'm seeing that. From a historical perspective, I'm seeing that. From an archaeological perspective, I'm seeing that. And that ties in with some other stuff I also see going on from a prophetic standpoint, with a lot of these what you will call, what's the right word, black empowerment movements. You know, this whole Black Lives Matter, which is a setup that's run by sodomite women, and all these pro-black movements, this whole comedic movement. The Lord is really showing me that all that ties together for what is to come. So ultimately, what I believe what's going to happen is you're going to have this ruler who's going to be a black man, posing himself like he is the Christ, coming as a counterfeit to the true Christ, who we know is a man of color also. And then you're going to have an influx of people, of blacks, who are primarily, you would say, they are going to rule the world. And you hear, if you're in the community or whatnot, and you listen to a lot of blacks and stuff and everything that are not saved, they will tell you this exact thing, that they are waiting to be reestablished back into power to ultimately rule the world again, like they did in Egypt. So when you hear these different things and whatnot, and you see what is going on in the world, it really makes you stop in and think. And America will tell you that blacks and others are the minority. But when you really look at the statistics, what we call the Caucasians or white Americans, they are the minority. They don't want that to get out because for fear of losing power or whatnot. So you see this big push with Africa and all these things going on with Africa. You have to ask yourself, why? Why all of a sudden all this stuff is going on with Africa, where the president is talking about giving the land back, which I think he went ahead and went through with that. Then you have, they've marked 2019 as the year of return, which I'm going to get into that in another video that ties in with Bible prophecy. But we know that Satan always counterfeits everything. So people are looking at this third temple being rebuilt. I don't believe it's going to be a third temple rebuilt in the way that people think is going to be rebuilt. And so just imagine you have this black Antichrist ruler coming on the scene that is able to bring blacks and whites together. Because think about this also. If the Antichrist is what we call a white man. He steps on the scene. It's going to be kind of hard for him. Not saying it's not possible, but it's going to be hard for him to draw in blacks to bow down and worship him when blacks already have this mindset about whites in general, saying that I'm not finna bow down to no white man, blase, blase, whoop de woo, whatever. We see the animosity between so-called blacks and so-called whites. So it would make more sense. And also, if you think about it, with President Trump being president, look how the world, especially America, more so, is more divided in regards to race and racism and stuff like that on both sides. But look how it was when President Obama was president. People were more together than they are under President Trump. So I'm not saying that it's not possible, but just the evidence is leaning more toward the Antichrist being what we call a black man. And it seems like it would be easier to draw all the people together if he was a man of color, because then the black people would fall in line because they will follow a black Messiah. And majority of whites would be like, well, you know, I just want peace. I just want to live. I just want to live my life out. I don't care. You know, I don't care who. You know, and a lot of whites, they know these things or whatnot. They know that time period is coming. So you have many witnesses that are testifying to this. I watched videos where white people have said, "Dear blacks," and I'm paraphrasing, "Dear blacks, when you rule the world, please remember me. Don't treat me the way we treated you." So going back to the point that I was making, imagine this black man coming on the scene as the Antichrist, right? And he reveals the truth about Israel. And he says, you know, the people posing as Jews, they're not the Jews. And he's quoting scriptures and everything. And he's telling the people, now's your time to come home. And you have all these so-called Israelites. You have all these black people influxing over to Africa. And people thinking it's going to be set up with the people who are trying to set up the temple now, when I don't believe it's going to go down like that. I believe you're going to have an influx of black people coming to Africa, living in Africa, in essence, it being established as the new Atlantis. And it's also a possibility that when he's ruling and reigning from Jerusalem, that at that time period, that becomes Mystery Babylon, and America is destroyed. But right now, America is Mystery Babylon. And I say that because you have to remember, you have to study this. All throughout scriptures, Mystery Babylon moves. She moves. She's not just one nation all the time, completely. She's different nations, or she's a different nation throughout history. Right now, she is America. Before that, we know that she was, pretty much centralized in Rome. And we can go back all the way to the Babylonian kingdom with Nebuchadnezzar and stuff like that, and just go down the list of whatnot. So all throughout history, in the book of Ezekiel, I think it is, or Isaiah, some of you who are more studied, you know these things. It talks about how she moves around and whatnot. But as of right now, she is Mystery Babylon. Now in the future, she could be this kingdom that they're going to build. They're building up now in Africa. Think about Dubai and everything. You think they're building all that up and spending all that money for no reason? And when you read the scriptures in regards to where everything goes down, it's over in that part of the country. So that's just to give y'all some things to think about. I know I probably said a mouthful already, but I have some more videos coming that really going to get your mind thinking and just give you a different perspective. And I guess we will see how things are really going to play out. And ultimately, I want y'all to study these things out also for yourself and pray about it. So in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, we're going to read about these locusts that come out the pit. So we want to start at verse number 1 and just read down. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. We know this is not Jesus Christ, because Jesus did not fall, never has, and never will fall from heaven. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. It's a possibility that this bottomless pit is over a volcano or something, because of we see smoke coming out, and the smoke it was like a great furnace that darkened the sun and the air. And when you research it, this is what volcanoes do. And if I'm not mistaken, volcano is named after a god in the Greek mythology, if I'm not mistaken. So I forgot what the god is of, but maybe he's a god of fire, god of war. I can't really remember. You can look that up. Verse number 3, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now, some of you have seen the pictures of when volcanoes erupt. You can see spiritual entities in the smoke. So that's pretty interesting, like giants and stuff like that. In verse number 4, it says, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Some people, I don't know how they come up with this, but they talk about these locusts or helicopters. That's straight lunacy. Locusts, naturally, they eat the grass and the green things and the trees. But God here is telling them to not eat them, but to hurt the men. So we can obviously eliminate helicopters. So are these talking about locusts like we know them today? No. When it's talking about locusts, it's talking about their mentality of how they swarm together, and just, they're voracious. So in verse number 5, it says, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Crazy times, but hey, people say they want to go through this. They're looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm looking for God's grace. And the shape of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. So it said they were shaped like horses. To keep that in mind. On their heads they had crowns like gold, and their faces they looked like men. And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. So it's easy to see that these are not helicopters, and it's easy to see that these are not just regular locusts coming out of the pit who has Satan ruling over them. And also, I want y'all to notice that the Bible mentions 2 different languages, the Hebrew tongue and the Greek tongue. Apollyon, Abaddon, same angel of the bottomless pit. And the reason I say that, because you're going to have people that argue. This proves my point that much more. You will have people argue about, oh, his name is not Jesus Christ. In every language, in the Hebrew tongue and the Greek tongue, going all the way back to the Phoenician language or the Sumerian text, or however far back you want to go, however it's pronounced in that language or whoever they're referring to, it's the same person. Meaning that whatever it is, let's say in the Phoenician language, of course it wouldn't be Jesus Christ in the Phoenician, but whatever it is in the Phoenician language, it still means the same thing in the Phoenician language, just as it does in the English language as far as Jesus Christ. Now, the thing you have to ask yourself is, no matter what language you want to say his name in, is it the right person? Because we can see this angel, who we call what? Satan. In Hebrew, they call him Abaddon. In the Greek, they call him Apollyon. Is this not the same entity as Satan? Yes, we know this. So, just think about that. People, if you're watching this video and you're arguing about the name of Jesus, really think about what you're arguing about. Because I'm giving you evidence right here in the very scripture that you say that you believe. The Bible mentions the Hebrew tongue and the Greek tongue. Same being. Same being. Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. That's Satan. Greek tongue, his name was Apollyon. It's still Satan. Now, can you take this and can you apply it to say this is Jesus? Absolutely not, because it's not the same. It's not the same person. But some people will, though. So let's see if we can find these creatures throughout history. Let's see if we can do that. And let's see what these creatures are really about. So you have what we would call the manticore, and this is that creature throughout history. So just like you have the description of these locust type creatures mentioned in the Bible, they're called in history, they're called the manticore. They're the same creatures. So are we not supposed to call them manticore or the locusts of Revelation 9 because we can't say that it's not their name. They're not manticore, or they're not the locusts of Revelation 9. They're the man eaters, or they're the manticore. Should we call them the manticore because they come from the Persian language? Like, come on. If I say manticore and you look all this stuff up, you say, oh, these are the same creatures as the manticore. The manticore is the manticore. Jesus is Jesus in English, and whatever there's so many different pronunciations. Yeshua, or whatnot. Is it the same? Is it the right person? That's what we need to be worried about. So the manticore, modern Persian, is a Persian legendary creature similar to the Egyptian Sphinx. So I'm tending to believe that the Sphinx was originally this creature, and over time it has been changed. That proliferated in Western European medieval art as well. It has the head of a human, body of a lion, and a tail of venomous spines similar to porcupine quills, while other depictions have it with the tail of a scorpion. Now, in the Bible it says they have bodies similar to a horse. Here it says the body of a lion. But if you look at the body of a lion, the body of a lion is similar to the body of a horse. It has really the same structure. So, body of a lion, body of a horse, you can argue or whatnot, but it's still a beast. It's still a beast, and the bodies are that similar that if you've seen this creature, you wouldn't be like, oh, that creature has the body of a lion, not of a horse, or that creature has the body of a horse and not of a lion. You're not gonna be like, that creature, that's not the right creature, because that creature is supposed to have a body of a lion, it has a body of a horse, or vice versa. You're not gonna be saying that. You're not gonna be saying that. The Bible gives its account from what he saw. That's what he saw. But when you read the different stories in the different accounts, you see it's pretty much the same creature. Pretty much the same creature. There are some accounts that the spines can be shot like arrows, thus making the manticore a lethal predator. It eats its victims whole, using its triple rows of teeth, and leaves no bones behind. That's the other one talking about the one that has like half man, half tiger. The manticore myth, it's not really a myth, not a myth at all, was a Persian origin where its name was man-eater. Now, who are these creatures attacking in the book of Revelation? They are attacking men, but they're not allowed to do exactly what they're supposed to do, or what they want to do, eat the men, at least not for 5 months. The English term manticore was borrowed from Latin manticora, itself derived from the Greek rendering of the Persian name Marticora. It passed into European folklore first through marked by, don't know how to pronounce it, don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm going to keep it moving. A Greek physician at the Persian court of King Xerxes II in the 4th century BC in his book Indica or India, which circulated among Greek writers on natural history but has survived only in fragments or references by those other writers. The Romanized Greek Pausanias, in his description of Greece, recalled strange animals he had seen at Rome and commented, "The beast described by so-and-so in his Indian story, which he says is called Marticorus by the Indians and man-eater by the Greeks, I am inclined to think is the tiger, but that it has 3 rows of teeth along each jaw and spikes at the lip of its tail with which it defends itself at close quarters, or it hurls them like an archer's arrows or more distant enemies. All this is, I think, a false story that the Indians pass on from one to another owing to their excessive dread of the beast." So you're pretty much saying they exaggerated the story of a tiger because they were so fearful of it. But we see that's not true. There's too much evidence to support this creature is real. I'll probably pronounce his name wrong, but y'all bear with me. Pliny the Elder did not share Pausanias' skepticism. He followed Aristotle's natural history by including the Marticorus, mistranscribed as Marticorus, in his copy of Aristotle among his descriptions of animals in Naturalis Historia. So he talks about it, and we jump down and says, and inasmuch as the following conversation also has been recorded by Dymas as having been held upon this occasion with regard to the mythological animals and fountains and men met with in India, I must not leave it out, for there is much to be gained by neither believing nor yet disbelieving everything. So we see he was smarter than this guy up here, because he said, okay, I'm not going to completely reject what they're saying, but I'm not going to just completely believe it either. I'm going to do my own research. So let's read that one more time. For there is much to be gained by neither believing nor yet believing everything. So we're reading this, we're not going to believe everything that it's saying, but we're not going to reject everything that the articles we read. Also, we're not going to reject everything. We're going to take all the pieces, all the evidence together and get a complete story and see if what the Bible is telling us is true. Accordingly, Apollonius asked the question. Y'all know I ain't good with pronouncing words and names sometimes, so y'all just bear with me. You see it on the screen. You can correct me later. whether there was an animal called the man-eater. And Icarus replied, and what have you heard about the make of this animal? For it is probable that there is some account given of its shape. There are, replied Apollyon. I cannot get that right, so we're going to skip over that. Tall stories current, which I cannot believe. For they say that the creature has 4 feet, and that his head resembles that of a man, but that in size is comparable to a lion, while the tail of this animal puts out hairs a cubit long, and sharp as thorns, which it shoots like arrows at those who hunt it. So we have historical evidence where people, they heard about it. Some people believed it, some people didn't, but we do have historical evidence about this creature. So it's not just something that people can say, oh, the Bible made that up. That's just not completely true. Now I want you to notice something, and this is probably going to blow your mind because I completely missed it. And I mentioned it in another sermon that I haven't released yet. So if you hear me mention it in there like it's brand new, it's because I'm doing this sermon before, well, I'm releasing this sermon before I release some other sermons I'm working on, or I have completed. I just got to do the editing and stuff. So this creature, right, has 4 feet, and it walks around, and you're going to see it has wings, and it can fly. I want to show you something. And you also have the creature called, in history, or they call it mythology, the griffin. The griffin. Now, let's go to the scriptures. And I was going to save this for last, but I want to bring this scripture up now. And this is just blow your spirit. Like, whoa. Because I missed this. Now, I want to ask you, how many birds do you know that walk around on all fours? How many birds do you know that can walk around on all fours? I don't know of any birds that can walk around on all fours. Now, if you go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 11, it talks about the animals and stuff like that, the ones they could eat and they couldn't eat, right? But when you get to verse number 20, it says something very, very interesting. All fowls that creep or walk around, when you look that word up, going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you. All fowls. We know what fowls are, and just in case we don't know what fowls are, let's just get the definition of it. Fowl. A flying or winged animal. So, let's go down. All flying or winged animals that creep. What does creep mean? Creep. To move. What says? To scrape or scratch. To move the belly on the ground or the surface of any other body as a worm or serpent without legs. To move along the ground. The body. To move slowly, feebly. To move slowly or insensibly. To move secretly. So all winged animals that move secretly or move slowly on the ground or scrape on the ground, because you know a creature when it's walking, like a lion, they're literally, think about it, they're scratching the ground with their paws and stuff. Going upon all four. There are no flying winged creatures, animals, birds that would you consider birds or animals, and then you think about it, it said animals, it just didn't say birds if I'm not mistaken. Let's go back and type in fowl. Fowl. A flying or winged animal. So this is just not referring to birds. All flying or winged animals that creep, going upon all four. What animal that has wings do you know that flies around and then walks around on all fours? I want you to really think about that scripture. They shall be what? Shall be an abomination unto you. So these, what they call mythical creatures, they did exist. They did exist. So now we want to go to, let me make sure I got everything on this one. Yeah, I pretty much got everything. We want to look up the word manticore, and the manticore says fabulous monster with the body of a lion, head of a man, porcupine quills, and tail or sting of a scorpion. Pretty much man-eater. Man-eater. So people say that, oh, Dante's Inferno, that's fake. That's fake. People say that it's crazy. They say that the Bible account of hell is based off of Dante's Inferno. Now, that's just historically bad. If you look it up, Dante's Inferno is based off of a poem, a 14th century epic poem called Divine Comedy. 14th century. Now, if we go over here and we look at the history of the Bible, it says the holy book used by the early Christians is the Jewish Bible, known to Christians now as the Old Testament. But from the middle of the 1st century AD, texts began to be written, which will later be gathered into a New Testament, representing the updated covenant revealed by Christ. The earliest such texts are the letters or epistles written between about 50 and 62 AD by St. Paul to various early Christian communities. Next in the chronological sequence comes the Acts of the Apostles, a description of the missionary efforts of Peter and others in Jerusalem and of Paul on his own journeys. This account is believed to be the work of Luke, who probably writes it between about AD 75 and 90. So look at the dates. Way before Dante's Inferno, which was the 14th century. So the Bible did not get its references about hell from Dante's Inferno. That's a lie. That's a lie. And you will hear many Nasla Islam people teach that. Oh, you got that from the white man Dante's Inferno. And shut up. Shut up. You're a liar. You're a straight up liar. The historical evidence speaks contrary to what you're talking about. So Inferno is Italian for hell, is the first part of Dante's 14th century epic poem, Divine Comedy. It is followed by Purgatory and Paradise. The Inferno tells us the journey of Dante through hell, guided by the ancient Roman poet Virgil. In the poem, hell is depicted as 9 concentric circles of torment located within the earth. It is the realm of those who have rejected spiritual values by yielding to bestial appetites or violence, or by perverting their human intellect to fraud or malice against their fellow men. They're in hell for rejecting the gospel. As an allegory, the Divine Comedy represents the journey of the soul toward God, with the Inferno describing the recognition and rejection of sin. Allegory is a made-up story, man. It ain't real, man. It's a made-up story. As a literary device, an allegory is a metaphor in which a character, place, or event is used to deliver a broader message about real-world issues and occurrences. Allegory has occurred widely throughout history in all forms of art, largely because it can readily illustrate or convey complex ideas and, I think it says, concepts. We went over that before. Allegory is not a made-up story. An allegory can include different things, including people. People can be an allegory of something deeper, which is what the Bible is teaching when it talks about allegory, about the 2 children. So if we go down, it talks about, I'm trying to find it real quick. I cannot find it right now. I thought I had it up. But what it says, what it mentions is, and I think if I go if I go back to manticore down here, it mentions it in his account. Dante mentions the manticore coming up or being down there in the pits of hell, and I don't see it specifically. Maybe it's in another clip. But also throughout history, you're going to see that you have different depictions of the manticore. You will see the manticore throughout history depicted as a giant. So you may be saying, okay, is he a giant or is he a beast? If you think about it, it's one and the same. Maybe in his physical form, when the manticore was here on Earth, he was this giant that had 3 heads, and you got different accounts of how many arms or how many legs he had or whatnot. And then in that form in hell, he is the manticore. Either way, it's still an abomination. Still something that wasn't supposed to really exist. And I say that just to be, be fair in my assessment and giving you these different things. There you go, right there. Dante in his Inferno depicted the mythical creature Geiron as a manticore, following Pliny's description. I apologize if I pronounce that name wrong. Again, I'm not always good at pronouncing words or names. I think that's what it was. I had this up and I haven't gotten to it yet. So we go to it now. In Greek mythology, Geiron, we skip over all that. It talks about he was the son of Chrysaor in Calahor. I have no idea. The grandson of Medusa and the nephew of Pegasus. He was a fearsome giant who dwelt on the island of Erythea, of the mythic, I don't know, in the far west of the Mediterranean. A more literal-minded later generation of Greeks associate the region of Tartessos in southern Iberia. Geiron was often described as a monster with human faces. So here you have this creature that Dante claims to have seen in hell, and in Greek mythology, they say he was a giant, or this creature overall was a giant, or you could say a race of giants. So again, which one was it? Was it a giant? Was he a giant? Were they giants, or were they these creatures that we're reading about in the book of Revelation? I believe it was both. It just depends on what form they were taking at whatever time. When they were here on this earth, having 3 heads and being these fearsome giants, that's how they look. Now, because of what they really are, they have possibly mutated, and that's how they're coming out of the pits of hell. But it could also be that the description in the book of Revelation is just giving an account of what he saw. And then when they are physically manifested in this earth, when they do come out the pits of hell, then they do look like that. And the reason I say that is because you read many scriptures where it talks about where they had visions and they saw men or creatures riding on horses. But then when you see the physical manifestation of it, it end up kind of like being something else. So you got to understand from their perspective how they were describing things. In the same way they're describing it, how they saw it, because they got the story from somewhere. So let's continue forward, and we have another article that speaks about the manticore. And those are just some pictures of it, which is just crazy. Look at that one. It's going to be worse than that. So it says, a manticore is a mythological creature that was said to be unconquerable. The mighty beast is best known for its strange but magnificent features. It is often said that the beast had the head of a man, the body of a lion, and the tail of a scorpion. They are thought to be one of the mightiest of beasts and were capable of devouring every animal in the jungle except for elephants. There is no given explanation for why these creatures were unable to defeat elephants. Only documentation that for some reason elephants seem to be able to evade even the most powerful of the manticores. The word manticore itself is an adaptation of the Persian name for the beast Marticorus. This is thought to loosely translate to man-eater. According to Persian lore, the creature was able to devour any beast except elephants, of course, without leaving any remains behind. However, despite its dominance in the jungle, the manticore had an especially intense hunger for human flesh. That's interesting. Why? Because of what the Word of God says. Who are they tormenting? They're tormenting men. It was said to make do with one man if that was all that was available, but much rather preferred to lie in wait for a minimum of 2 to 3 men and devour them all. It was rumored that the manticore was able to kill 3 men at once without issue and could likely take more than that number if the opportunity presented itself. I also found it interesting because the scriptures also talk about these giants back in the day, I think in the book of Numbers, and how they used to eat the inhabitants of the land, meaning they used to literally eat people. And even through history, when you study the giants and the Nephilim, which are the giants and stuff, you see that they ate people. So here you have this beast who is depicted this way, being a man-eater. Now, again, how is the creature going to look when it comes out the pits of hell? It could very well look like this, but regardless, I don't think that's something that we want to see. A 3-headed Nephilim or a beast that has the body of a lion. And we can take the scriptures for face value, saying the body of a lion or, a body of a horse and all these different characteristics that we see. But we see a consistency, and we see multiple witnesses that are testifying to these different things. So I know somebody will argue, well, it's a giant, man. It's not that. Okay, you deal with a 3-headed giant then, with six arms and 6 fingers and 6 toes or whatever. You deal with that. Or you can deal with the manticore, which is, either one. I mean, come on, man. Let's just be real. Just stupid foolishness. The manticore was seen as an apex predator that couldn't be matched by man. The beast was supposedly known to have incredible speed that not even the fastest man could compete with in a chase. In addition to this, the body of a manticore was similar to a lion. This meant that the beast also had long, sharp claws that it could use to tear apart its victims if the opportunity arose. The beast was supposedly capable of ripping a man apart with one swipe of its mighty paws. Oh yeah, you really want to face that though, huh? Over a 3-headed 3-headed monster. Okay. Though the claws of the beast were no doubt intimidating, many recorded tales suggest that the manticore rarely relied on them. The tail of the beast resembled that of a scorpion and had several large stings that came off the sides and one sting that rested at the tip of the tail. These stings were poisonous and could be used to prick a victim if in close proximity. Distance, however, didn't bring much more safety to a potential victim of the manticore. It was said that the mighty beast had the ability to shoot these stings from its tails like arrows. When one sting had been shot, it was replaced by another that could then be shot at the target at the target until the beast was, it was replaced by another that could then be shot at the target until the beast was successful. Now I found this interesting. These things would inject the victim with poison and cause them to become paralyzed. Men shall seek death, but death shall flee them. Is it possible that they will be paralyzed by the shots for five months, and they will have these creatures over them? And then then let's say it wears off, and then they run trying to get away, and then these creatures are tormenting them because they're whatever they're doing, and then the creatures, they don't kill them, but they strike just so much fear in the people, and then they paralyze them again like they're going to eat them. And they drag them off into a layer or whatnot. I'm just saying, I don't know how it's gonna go down. I ain't trying to watch it from that side. I don't know about you. The beast was then free to devour the victim without a struggle. The manticore was famed for eating its victims whole and leaving nothing behind. While many other beasts of the forest are able to devour the entirety of the human body, the manticore took its feastings a step farther. In addition to eating all of its victims' remains, it also ate their clothing, money, and other possessions. Because of this, there was often little evidence that the manticore had struck aside from trace amounts of blood. This is also part of the reason the beast was feared by so many. Whenever a person went missing and searches failed to return any trace of their body or possessions, the loss of the person was blamed on a manticore attack. We jump down, then it says, it was claimed that the manticore lured people in by laying in tall grass or reeds. This would hide its magnificent body and show only the head of what appeared to be a bearded man. Many victims were said to have ventured too close to the beast, only to be devoured by its 3 rows of sharp teeth. It was thought that those who ventured too close to the beast failed to notice several key signs. Most notable of these signs was said to be the sound of music. Now, I found that interesting too. I wonder where they got this ability to make a sound like music to lure people in. Kind of like the mermaids. They've painted mermaids as something nice, when mermaids, from a mythological standpoint, were not nice. It was thought that the manticore was unable to speak in human languages. I wonder why. But had a voice similar to that of a trumpet. Because of this, the sound of music was often seen as a warning that a manticore was nearby. Other signs included location or the appearance of the man they thought they were approaching. It is often said that the head of a manticore looked like a bearded man with blue or gray eyes. It is safe to say that few who saw the color of the beast's eyes lived to tell the story later. You want to face that? You want to face that? Rather he's that big or not, or if he's a three-headed monster, you want to face that? Three-headed giant, you want to face that? Maybe you'll pick your poison, but I ain't picking neither poison. There were, however, measures that could be taken to ensure that these beasts were not able to grow into predators that were impossible to escape. Records show that it was believed a manticore could be hunted while it was young in order to prevent the development of one of its most fearsome attributes, its tail. Supposedly, skilled hunters were able to track down the young manticore cubs because their tails hadn't yet developed the deadly stings. It was thought that if one could capture a manticore and stomp on the tail hard enough, the tail would become deformed and wouldn't be able to grow the deadly stings that rendered villagers and travelers helpless against the beasts. Other than this, fighting the manticore was thought to be futile. Sounds familiar to what it's saying in the book of Revelation also, right? It's going to be futile. It was believed that the fur of the manticore was impenetrable, and any weapon used against the body of the beast would be in vain. Though no known records support the thought, some have hypothesized that the only place a manticore was vulnerable was in its mouth. However, even if a manticore were able to be killed with a fatal blow to the mouth, it is thought that the creature would simply resurrect, as it is thought to have mythical powers. Mm, mm, mm. Though there is no evidence of a manticore to view in modern days, it is reported that the beast was captured on at least one occasion and presented to the then king of Persia as a gift. King Xerxes, what we read about earlier from the Wikipedia. The manticore was given to King Xerxes II while, don't know how to pronounce his name, was serving in his court as a physician. It was through this exchange and the witnessing of the creature by that guy that the legend of the manticore was able to spread to the rest of the world, most notably Greece. Once the legend of the manticore was spread to Greece, it was met with mixed reactions. It's just going back over what we read earlier, so we're going to skip past that. Let's read this physical appearance. The manticore is often described as a mighty beast with fearsome features. The head of the beast is often said to be similar to that of a man. In most accounts, the head also has a beard and features eyes that are either blue or gray in color. From a distance, the head of a manticore isn't a terrifying sight. It isn't until the victim is close enough to the beast to see its open mouth and three rows of sharp teeth that the true nature of the beast becomes known. There's also great emphasis given to the body of the beast. The body of the manticore is always described as being similar to that of a lion, but has a brilliant hue of red, often recorded as being scarlet in color. The manticore's body is often much larger than that of a normal lion and is capable of performing impressive feats. The most notable of these feats is perhaps its surprisingly fast and agile speed. It is said that not even the fastest man can match the speed of a manticore when in pursuit of prey. Additionally, the claws of the beast are known to be extremely sharp. With one swipe of its mighty paw, a manticore can easily tear a man apart. I think that was... Yeah, there we go. It's another part. Talk about the wings. That's a sculpture or something that somebody made of one. There are also some versions of the manticore that describe the beast as having a pair of mighty wings that allow it to fly in pursuit of its prey at terrifying speeds. These accounts normally describe wings that are similar to those of a dragon. Now, who's the king over these beasts? The dragon. So, do these creatures exist? Absolutely. Did they exist? Absolutely. So when you type in manticore on Google and you look at the images, you're going to get different depictions. This is the most craziest one that I've seen right here. I would say this is probably the most accurate that we can get. And it's probably 1,000 times worse what they really look like. So just imagine something like that coming out the pits of hell, and they flying around in like a pack of locusts. Hell, I don't know if you ever seen locusts, but yeah. So I probably lean more toward them being in this form when they come out the pits of hell. If we just scroll down, you'll see some of these pictures of manticores. This is an interesting one too, right here. Because you see, if he's running, he looks like a beast, but if he stands up, he kind of looks like a giant, like a man, like some type of Nephilim. So that's why I was saying what I was saying or whatnot. It really could be both. And we see that all throughout the scriptures where uh, different entities are referenced as a certain type of creature, and then they are manifested into a man. I think it's also in the book of Daniel where it talks about the four creatures, and it says that one was like a lion or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but some of y'all know. If you don't, you can go look it up. And it says that they were made to stand up like a man, and they were given the heart of a man. So again, that's why I'm saying it could very well be both of them. Both accounts, I believe, are true, and that's a very good depiction of that. How both of them can be true, and also the scripture that I just referenced to you a second ago. But it just got different ones. We'll look at one more, and then we'll push forward. Let's look at this one. Look at that. That's crazy. So you have Nimrod throughout history. And when you look at Nimrod, you see this interesting depiction of Nimrod, which is this head, then this body like a what? Like a horse, which, a body of a horse, you can also say is shaped like a lion, and these wings. Let's see if we can get a better one. There you go. And he has his tail. And it looks like something is on this tail or whatnot. I'm not going to say it's spikes or whatever, but you get the point. Like, why is this depicted like that? And why is it depicted like Nimrod, who we know he was the first Antichrist that we know about. And you can say Nimrod is Satan when you do the studies on it and stuff. And these creatures, they had a king over them. Now, when you get into the account of Gilgamesh, you see that Gilgamesh was a giant, half god, half man, they say. And you make the connection that Gilgamesh is Nimrod. Now, what's very interesting about this is this. What do you have here? You have that very same creature with that body of a lion or body of a horse. We would say that's probably a lion, unless this is a giant. So we'll go with that would be a horse. Cause look at the feet. Look at the feet. So this guy would be a giant compared to this horse, because horses are pretty big. I guess that guy would be a giant too. Yeah, I would say horse, because those don't look like lion legs. Those are more like horse legs. So this is a closer depiction to what the scriptures are telling us. The body of a horse. They have wings. They go to faces or whatnot, and I can't tell if there's a crown up there, but you pretty much get the point. And again, Gilgamesh is Nimrod, who is also this guy right here, Sargon. Nimrod is Sargon, who is Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is Sargon, who is Nimrod. It's the same person. The Bible mentions Sargon one time. Isaiah chapter 20, verse number 1. In the year that Tartan came unto Ashdod, interesting, it says his name is Tartan, when Sargon the king of Assyria sent him and fought against Ashdod and took it. So Sargon, who was the king of Assyria during this time, he's mentioned this one time, but this is Nimrod. I'm going to show you some correlation between Sargon, Nimrod, and Gilgamesh. So Sargon of Akkad, also known as Sargon the Great, was the first ruler of the Semitic-speaking Akkadian Empire known for his conquest of the Sumerian city-states in the 24th to 23rd centuries BC. He was the founder of the Sargonic or Old Akkadian dynasty, which ruled for about a century after his death until Gudea conquest of Sumer. The Sumerian kings list make him the cupbearer to King Zababa of Kish or Cush. His empire is thought to have included most of Mesopotamia, parts of the Levant, besides incursions into Hurite and Elamite territory, ruling from his archaeologically as yet unidentified capital, Akkad. Sargon appears as a legendary figure in the Neo-Assyrian literature of the 8th to 7th centuries BC. So if we go down, it talks about his name, what his name means. And I'm trying to find where it talks about him pretty much like taking on the role like he's Moses. It may not be in this one, maybe in the next point I want to make. Oh yeah, let's read this. Sumerian legend. The Sumerian language Sargon legend contains a legendary account of Sargon's rise to power. It is an older version of the previously known Assyrian legend discovered in 1974 in Nippur and first edited in 1983. The extant versions are incomplete, but the surviving fragments name Sargon's father as Lionbum after Iacuna. The text skips to Zababa, king of Kish, who awakens after a dream, the contents of which are not revealed on the surviving portion of the tablet. For unknown reasons, Zababa appoints Sargon as his cupbearer. Soon after this, Zababa invites Sargon to his chambers to discuss a dream of Sargon's, involving the favor of the goddess Inanna and the drowning of Zababa by the goddess. Deeply frightened, Zababa orders Sargon murdered by the hands of Belistikal, the chief smith, but Inanna prevents it, demanding that Sargon stop at the gates because of his being polluted with blood. When Sargon returns to Zababa, the king becomes frightened again and decides to send Sargon to King of Uruk with a message on a clay tablet asking him to slay Sargon. The legend breaks off at this point. Presumably, the missing section describes how Sargon becomes king. Now listen to this. The part of the interpretation of the king's dream has parallels to the biblical story of Joseph. The part about the letter with the carrier's death sentence has parallels to the Greek story of Bellerophon and the biblical story of Uriah. So we jump down here and it says similarities between the Sargon birth legend. Matter of fact, let's go back up and read it because I want y'all to see this. My mother was a high priestess. My father I knew not. The brothers of my father loved the hills. My city is Azuperanu, which is situated on the banks of the Euphrates. My high priestess mother conceived me. In secret she bore me. She set me in a basket of rushes. With the bitumen she sealed my lid. She cast me into the river which rose over me. The river bore me up and carried me to Aki, the drawer of water. Aki, the drawer of water, took me as his son and reared me. Aki, the drawer of water, appointed me as his gardener. While I was a gardener, Ishtar granted me her love, and for 4 and so many years I exercised kingship. Similarities between the Sargon birth legend and other infant birth exposures in ancient literature, including Moses. Sargon is also one of the many suggestions for the identity or inspiration for the biblical Nimrod. So Sargon is pretty much the same person as Nimrod. It just his name was changed, and you got to have to understand what Nimrod actually means. Is more so a descriptive term than it is, I believe, his actual name. It's kind of like, my nickname. My nickname is Popeye. Like Popeye the Sailor Man. But y'all know me as Kelson King. So for my studies, Nimrod would be more of a nickname or descriptive name that they would call him compared to his real name during that time, whatnot. Because Nimrod will more describe him from a biblical perspective in regard to the things that he was doing and actually what Nimrod means. And we see name changes throughout the Bible all the time. So if we continue forward, we see this is Sargon right here, and it's clear to see that Sargon is a man of color, what we call a black man. Not hard to see. So it shows you even more evidence that Nimrod, Gilgamesh, Sargon is what we call a black man. Nimrod was a black man. And I told y'all this before, and now I'm giving you more evidence to support it. It's clear to see. So the Bible references the Antichrist as the Assyrian. And we want to go to the scriptures, and we just want to read a few of those scriptures. Isaiah chapter 10, verse number 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. Isaiah 10:24. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God of hosts, O my people that dwelleth in Zion, be not afraid of the Assyrian. He shall smite thee with a rod, he shall lift up his staff against thee, after the manner of Egypt. Isaiah 14, verse 25, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him under foot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. That's interesting, because of course it's talking about back then, but this is also a future prophecy. And he says what? That I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them. We know who them is, the yoke departing off, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. So that goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning of this sermon. What I believe the Lord is showing me. I just haven't dug deep into it or whatnot to, really confirm it. So there are many scriptures that talk about the Assyrian, and y'all know these things about the Assyrian. But I just want to make these connections for you that you may have not thought about before, and they give you some more things to think about. So we go to this article, which is pretty good, and it talks about who was Nimrod, and it says, besides the stories of the creation and flood in the Bible, there ought to be similar stories on clay tablets found in the cultures near and around the true believers. These tablets may have a reaction or twisted version in their accounts of the creation and flood. In the post-flood genealogical records of Genesis 10, we know that the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Mizraim became the Egyptians. No one is sure where Put went to live, according to them, but just reading it. And it is obvious who the Canaanites were. Cush lived in the land of Shinar, which most scholars consider to be Sumer. There developed the first civilization after the flood. The sons of Shem, the Semites, were also mixed to some extent with the Sumerians. we suggest that Sumerian Kish, the first city established in Mesopotamia after the flood, took its name from the man known in the Bible as Cush. The first kingdom established after the flood was Kish, and the name Kish appears often on clay tablets. So that goes back to what I was also saying earlier. We call it Cush today, the land. We call Cush today one of Ham's son, but back then it was pronounced Kish. But it's still the same person. It's still the same person. The evidence shows it's the same person. So I made the argument in regards more so to Jesus Christ. His name is Jesus Christ in English. We're right here. The early post-flood Sumerian kings list, not found in the Bible, says that kingship descended from heaven to Kish after the flood. Excuse me. The Hebrew name Cush much later was moved to present-day Ethiopia as migrations took place from Mesopotamia to other places. The Sumerians very early developed a religio-political state which was extremely binding on all who lived in it, except for the rulers who were a law unto themselves. This system was to influence the ancient Near East for over 3,000 years, and even further than that, because that paved the way for the mystery religions that we are still dealing with today. Now, it's interesting that they said that they had this religious political state that was for the people, but it wasn't for the rulers because they were a law unto themselves. Remember, I was telling you in other videos how they had different meanings. They would tell one group, oh yeah, this is what the sun represents. This is what you're worshiping. Then you had another group, they would tell them one thing. Then you had those that were really in the know, that knew what they were worshiping and knew what was really going on. So it continues, and it says this, it continues right here and says, because we read that, other cultures which followed the Sumerian system were Akkad, Babylon, Assyria, and Persia, which became the basis of Greece and Rome's system of rule. These modern day systems are based off of this. Founded by Cush, the Sumerians were very important historically and biblically. So what I want to mention before I go any further is, and this is a separate video, but I just want to drop this seed. A lot of people in the black conscious community, or stay woke, all this other stuff they be talking about when they're really not woke. They will say that Christianity got its teachings from ancient Kemet, or Kemet, however you want to pronounce it. They would say we got the cross and the resurrection from them, and it was the Ankh and everything or whatnot. When that's not true, because Noah, if you I'm gonna do a whole sermon on this, Lord willing. Noah was a man of righteousness. We know that. Noah preached the gospel. So it goes back further than that. Cush and Nimrod, and more specifically Nimrod, he is the one that took the knowledge of the Messiah and twisted it for himself. Nimrod had gave him that knowledge of who God is and about the coming Messiah. And then, as you're going to see, he took it into his own hands and said, well, I'm not serving him, I'm not worshiping him. I'm going to take him out or whatnot because he flooded the earth. Blase. I'm going to be the savior. But Noah was a preacher of righteousness. Noah preached the gospel. And he preached it, and he taught his sons that. And Shem is the only one in his lineage that laid hold to it and kept to it throughout the centuries. Nimrod took it and twisted it. So the key to proving that Christ was before Kemet and the Ankh and all these different things is Noah. So all you have to do is look at the account of the flood from these ancient times and whatnot, and then and then you will see. But let's continue forward because I don't want to get too deep into that right now. The Sumerians very early developed, we read that. Other cultures which followed, we read all that too. Let's jump down. Found at Khorsabad, this 8th century BC stone relief is identified as Gilgamesh. You see, he's a giant. He's a giant. The best known of ancient Mesopotamian heroes, Gilgamesh was king of Uruk, or Ur. Remember, Abraham came out of Ur of the Chaldeans, in southern Mesopotamia. His story is known in the poetic Gilgamesh epic, but there is no historical evidence for his exploits in the story. That's not true. They found evidence for Gilgamesh recently, not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. And they're finding more evidence. He is described as part god and part man, a great builder and warrior, and a wise man in the story. Not mentioned in the Bible, the author suggests Gilgamesh is to be identified with biblical Nimrod. That's exactly correct. Was Nimrod godly or evil? First, what does the name Nimrod mean? It comes from the Hebrew meaning rebel. Adding an N before the M, it becomes a infinitive construct, Nimrod. Then said the meaning then is the rebel. Thus Nimrod may not be the character's name at all. It is more likely I probably pronounced that word wrong, but y'all bear with me. Derisive term of a type, a representative of a system that is epitomized in religion against the creator, the one true God. Rebellion began soon after the flood as civilizations were restored. At that time, this person became very prominent. So it talks about Nimrod and everything. Then we jump down to this, and this Gilgamesh was saying that this was the face of God. This face supposedly represents Huwawa, who according to the Gilgamesh epic sent the flood on the earth. So he's saying this represented, this is to God, this is what to Gilgamesh, this is what God looked like. According to the story, Humbaba in the Assyrian version was killed by Gilgamesh and his half man, half beast friend Enkidu. The author suggests Huwawa is the ancient pagan perspective of Yahweh, or God, the God of the Bible. So I found that funny. Like, to you God is ugly, but we know that God don't look like that. God ain't nowhere near ugly. It just talks about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which Epic of Gilgamesh is very interesting. It's very, very interesting. It has a lot of what's the word they use? Indecent stuff, indecent sections. Where he was getting down with his half animal creature. We put it like that. And then we jump down. It talks about how Gilgamesh was going to kill the one who sent the flood, but from my understanding of reading it, he met up with Noah, and then he was like, the whole thing really was about him trying to live forever, and he ended up meeting Noah because Noah stayed off in some distant area by himself, and it was hard to get to him. And then Noah pretty much said, you wasting your time, you wasting your life or whatnot. And then he had a realization and everything. But just because he had a realization, I mean, he ended up doing what he actually realized, that he was wasting his life trying to pursue things that he had no control over, and that he couldn't defeat God. That's what I recall from the video that I did watch a while back. I may post that video because it was a very good video, and this guy is very, very respected. He's like the go-to guy when it comes to breaking down the epic of Gilgamesh. So I tend to lean more toward his interpretation of what he was saying, what was going on, than I do a lot of the popular teachings about what about Gilgamesh or whatnot. So Josephus is what it says. Gilgamesh is Nimrod. How does Gilgamesh compare with Nimrod? Josephus says of Nimrod, now it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, bold man, and of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe it to God, as if it were through his means they were happy. See, he exalted himself as God in his heart, saying, I'm the one that brought y'all happiness, not God. Remember, the same thing happened with Nebuchadnezzar. Same spirit. But to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. Same thing Satan is doing today. You are your own God, and I'm the leader, and I'm going to show you how to do it. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God. So we see that they served God during this time, and he used tyranny to have people to turn to God. He pretty much used the physical. So they didn't really worship God the way that they said they did, or the way they said they thought. They didn't really have the faith that they thought that they had. If he used tyranny to turn them away from God, and he probably like, look, your God, look at your God. Your God isn't coming to get you. I'm your God. I'm gonna teach you how to be God like me. Same thing Satan is still doing. Then it continues on and says, but to bring them into a constant dependence upon his own power. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. That shows you he knew about all this stuff. So when people were talking about that, oh, Christianity, we got it from Kemet, or the Kemetic religions and stuff like that, or we, from ancient Egypt, that's simply not true. Because why would Nimrod have to do that? To use tyranny to turn people away from the fear of God. It didn't say nothing about multiple gods. It was one God that he was having them to turn their fear away from. Not multiple gods like ancient Egypt teaches. So that debunks the whole concept of, oh, Christianity got it from us. No, because Noah taught them the ways of the Lord. So it says again, he also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, or that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he will avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. So, yeah, and then the tower, it was more like this. It was more like they call it a ziggurat. And because up here is where they would worship the gods, and they would, get power and stuff like that. And then it's the same thing they got in other parts of Egypt and all around the world. The ziggurat, the pyramid, it went all the way down. It went down to the ground, and this is where they would get their real power from. This is where they would go down and they would commune with the spirits of the underworld. They say they have a passage down here where they were able to go into the underworld. This is where they got their real power from. But they would come up here like they was putting on a show, like they getting their power from here when they really getting it down here, going underground and stuff like that. So I think that's all I'm gonna read about this. If you want to read it for yourself, you can pause it. You can copy that link or whatnot, write it down, and you can go read this article for yourself. Some of it, you got to eat it with a grain of salt. But with that being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and close this video out. I pray and I hope this gave y'all some things to think about. As you see, Nimrod is Gilgamesh, is Sargon. Sargon is Gilgamesh, who is also Nimrod. And very soon, he will be back on the scene. Don't know what his name will be, but it will still be pretty much the resurrection of Nimrod, the resurrection of Gilgamesh, the resurrection of Sargon, the resurrection of Judas Iscariot. His name was Judas Iscariot during the time of Jesus. Back then, he was Nimrod, he was Sargon, he was Gilgamesh. During the time of Jesus, he was Judas Iscariot. I don't know what his name is going to be when he's resurrected, but that time period is coming, and he's coming with these creatures, the manticore, these man-eaters. So God bless each and every one of you in Jesus Christ's name. As always, stay focused for Jesus, and as you know, truth is not debated, it is declared. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If it was edifying to you, be sure to do your part and share it on all your social media outlets, websites, and forums. Your help is greatly appreciated to help fight this war and reach lost souls. Don't forget to like, dislike, and/or subscribe. Be sure to also check out our website, stayingfocusedforjesus.life, and make sure you check out that resource section, which has a lot of videos that I share and some other stuff, books, documents, PDF, websites, many things, and it's growing daily as I add to it. Also follow us on Facebook for even more content. Staying Focused for Jesus on Facebook.
Squeeze it so tight, get the last drop, till there's nothing left, until we pass out, keeping us around to clean up the mess and take the garbage out, but we'll be trash next. Create catastrophes to speed up the process, depopulation, agenda progress, news tell half-truths, hidden in plain sight. They know with it Kool-Aid, but gave us cyanide. They know we don't see it. They know you can't see it. What they've done to us. Open your eyes. Lemonade. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It ain't safe for us. They made it so sweetly, so it will be easy to carry their plans out to lemonade. Oh, lemonade. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It ain't safe for us. Made it too easy while we're busy sleeping. They carry their plans out to lemonade. Voluntarily, they hold us hostage, pay to receive fabricated knowledge, false education, standing ovation for my degree in indoctrination. Georgia Guidestones plainly tell us that they plan to eliminate us. Conspiracy theory, we see no dilemma as they quietly wipe out billions. They know we don't see it. They know you can't see it. They know what they done to us, taking us down. Lemonade. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It ain't safe for us. They made it so sweet. like Geppetto, pulling the strings, master plan, dumb us all down, eat what they feed us, try not to think, carry on, nothing to see, as they continue with their killing spree. We wasting time on trivial things and buy what they sell, even